Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Bengal Tiger podcast. I'm Matthew Brune. Joining me once again is Shea Dixon. Shea, it is Friday, October 11th, and we are a day away from LSU versus Ole Miss in Tiger Stadium. How are you feeling?
Biggest game of the year so far. I mean, it is buzzing down here with 100 years of Tiger Stadium celebration going on, and then everyone left and right asking for tickets, trying to find tickets. It will be, and with the game at 6:30, Matty B. I mean, it is going to be a full day of festivities, and they are all year is 100 years of Tiger Stadium celebration, but this is like homecoming and the actual celebration. So you'll see many former players back. A lot of current NFL guys are coming back. Obviously, some on bye, but boy, it will be quite the weekend. And then the guest captains, Warren Rabb, who quarterbacked the first national championship team in '58, Matt Flynn, quarterback of the '07 national championship team. I know Matt Mock had something else going on. So the third guest captain, none other than Slinger himself, Steve Insminger, former quarterback, who all 4 years never lost to Ole Miss, but also guided LSU as OC to arguably the best season ever in college football history, up there with Miami. So should be a fun weekend from start to finish, Matty B. Well, finish if they win, then it would be fun.
Yes.
But from start all the way through.
Yes. Once kickoff happens, it will be tense moments for everybody in attendance and everybody watching because it is such a significant game for both teams. I think I was asked this on the radio. It's like, what is the significance of this game? And you look at it just on its surface, it's two one-loss teams in the playoff era where me and you have both said if you're 10-2, you're in the playoffs in the ASCC or the Big Ten. If you're in this day and age, if you're 10-2, in those two conferences, you're going to get in the playoffs. If you're 9-3,
with losses to Ole Miss and Bama and USC.
Yeah, you're probably on the outside looking in at that point.
Okay.
So, or at the very least, it's not in your hands, right? It's in the committee's hands, and you have to see how it breaks. So maybe you
Well,
do,
we
but
know chaos is abound. This past weekend showed it.
That's kind of where I'm at. Is the loser of this, to me, is on the outside looking in for the playoffs, and is going to have to be borderline perfect for the rest of the year. So, and these are two obviously huge brands. These are two awesome teams this year, and two of the top coaches in the country, I'd say at this point. So, everything is setting up for a really really fun game in Tiger Stadium, and we can start breaking it down however you want
Ole Miss
to
has
get
more to
into it.
lose because they already lost a conference game, though, right?
Yes, and I
They
was
lose
asked
this
which.
one, they're at two SEC losses. LSU loses this one, they're at one SEC loss.
Yeah.
Even though you're at two losses total, leaving the margin of error to make the playoff at only two losses, at least you're still alive in the SEC race, right? Like,
Yeah, I think
I
like
know
the
I know we're
rational
being far fetched here, but
no, yeah. The rational side of me says there's more pressure on Ole Miss in this game, even though it is in Tiger Stadium. But don't tell any LSU fans that there's still plenty
you,
of pressure and heat on LSU to win this game.
I want to point this out too because I've listened to a ton of national podcasts this week and people talking about it and writing articles, and I've heard multiple people say LSU, this will be the weekend LSU gets exposed as a fraud team, as a fraud top 15 team. I don't think anyone in Baton Rouge or Louisiana or LSU fans considered this team to be better than like the number 13 team in the country. I think that they know good and well the deficiencies and what all it takes. And that I did this last week or a couple weeks ago, like the whole, oh, well, it's year three. Well, that's not what it used to mean in like the BCS era when you would become a head coach in year three
Yeah.
at a school like LSU, you would compete. They had less than 40 scholarship players. They had to go portal heavy. That's not good for long term. And essentially, I think next year and the year after, like that's when you really are buckled in saying, hey, we should be making the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
The flip side to this
And
is the approach Lane Kiffin did, which was buy a team in the offseason, do a 1 year rental, and let's see where it takes you. And Florida State did it. They went 12-0 and they didn't even make the playoffs. And look at them now. They are in shambles. So
yeah.
I'll take the Brian Kelly approach. I will take the roster building approach.
Yeah. Let's dive into this matchup. on paper. I feel like we've talked about it we did a mailbag on Wednesday, which is a little, later than when we've done it on Tuesday in the past, but we had a lot of Ole Miss questions there, so y'all can go check that out. But I think this time, especially for me, I think continuing to look at this game, I have some new thoughts on it overall. I want to start with LSU's offense against this defense. I think that is the most interesting matchup here. Ole Miss defense statistically ranks as one of the best in the country. We've talked about it before. They didn't play anybody in the first 4 games of the year. They've allowed 3 touchdowns all year. Coming into this one, I think the games against Kentucky and South Carolina showed limitations potentially. I think the injury to Princely Uman there you go, I got it right, is also significant. And then we'll see JJ Pegues is on the injury report as questionable, so we'll see what his status is. But the strength of this defense is their front 6, front 7, Jared Ivey, JJ Pegues, Walter Nolan. The linebackers are good. Chris Paul, Suntarine Perkins, Daughtery back there as well. So the front 6, front 7 is their strength. They get after the quarterback. They are going to be the best defensive line in terms of overall play, I think, that LSU's faced, and especially if you just considered a front 7, this will be the best that LSU's played. But at the same time, we haven't seen them go up against an offense like LSU, and I think LSU, with Garrett Nussmeier, with this offensive line, even with the limitations, which we'll talk about the injuries at receiver, but even with the injuries, I still think this is definitely by far the best receiving core that Ole Miss defense has faced, and it's a questionable Ole Miss secondary. So that's kind of my overarching view of this matchup is Ole Miss secondary is the weak point, and it's interesting because LSU's receivers are banged up.
Well, you mentioned LSU. Let's start there
Yeah.
really quickly. Do you have the PFF snap counts you can pull up? Because I have them through 4 games, but not 5. Right? They're 4.
I might have sent you a 5th one. The most recent one I think I sent you was the 5th one, but let me see if I can sign in. Okay, I did.
They've played 5 total games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it through
You have
4,
4?
but it's
Okay.
going to be about
Yeah,
the
let me.
same.
Here, I have it. I have it right here. Let me get it. Are you looking at the offense?
So Kyle Parker is out for what Brian Kelly says is the season with an elbow injury. What is your snap count on Kyle Parker?
I believe it was 43 off the top of my head.
What is it on? Are you looking at it or are you just memorizing?
I'm texting it to you right now, but I did memorize that one.
What about Shelton Sampson?
Shelton Sampson is at 68.
So Shelton Sampson has significantly more snaps than Kyle Parker at this point. Kyle Parker also was kind of split. It was a little bit more pass stuff than run blocking.
That also counts his first game against USC where he got hurt the first drive.
Sure. Okay. We know this has been and Mason Taylor, their tight end, is basically a receiver. You can say he leads the way then. I'm going through 4 games, not 5, but these numbers are going to be the same basically. Mason Taylor, 276 snaps.
I just texted you 5 if you want to look at that. But yeah, Mason Taylor's at 335 by far.
Okay.
The most.
The point I'm bringing up, you hate to lose Kyle Parker. Here's why I'm not overreacting to this. The bigger news from the injury report, I think, is CJ Daniels. And I know that Kyle Parker's out for maybe the year, and that sucks. And where I think, Matty B, that could bite you is if, 1, his development, and he was starting to come along.
Yeah.
2 is if you have other guys get hurt. He was definitely next in line. So your margin for losing guys is a little bit more slim now.
Yeah.
But when you just look at it, which I'm doing right now, and I'll read you off the numbers of snap counts. Mason Taylor leads the way, like you said. He is at 335. After that is CJ Daniels. We talked about that as being a surprise before, but the reality is, and look, I asked a source about this on the staff. Hey, it blew me away when I saw that CJ had played more snaps than anyone receiver. What gives? And the word was he blocks and understands and knows everything to do. Like, he
Yeah.
is the most trustworthy guy out there. So when I look at questionable and maybe not playing for a guy like CJ Daniels, yes, he catches 3 or 4 passes a game, but he's out there more than 300 snaps this year. That's more than Kyron Lacey has been out there this year. Kyron's at 253. Aaron Anderson, obviously, who's had just a phenomenal season, is at 169. Xavier Thomas, who starts on punt and kick returns, and then they get him involved on offense, obviously, at receiver. He is sitting at
91.
91. You mentioned Shelton Sampson at 68, and then Kyle Parker at 43. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He was 7th on your pass catcher list of plays. I mean, like, I'm not knocking Kyle Parker at all. Andy's the youngest guy of anyone in that group. That's not the panic for me. The panic for me, a little bit more concerning, is, oh, wait, the receiver that you play more than anybody might not play this weekend. And no, he's not Trey Harris putting up gaudy numbers, but CJ Daniels plays more than everyone else for some reason. And it's because he blocks well and he knows what he's doing.
And in addition to that is Chris Hilton potentially still being out. And I know people, kind of like are kind of over it at this point because we're past the middle point of the season. So it's like if he joins us, great. If not, then we can't lose what you never had, type of thing. But to your point, if you don't have CJ Daniels and Chris Hilton doesn't play and Kyle Parker's out, that's 3 going into the season.
Yeah, but we got to back off the going into this game, right?
Yeah. It's like
So we
still
can
that's
push
3 of
Hilton
the
aside for the second.
5 most talented receivers on the unit. Like, so not including tight end. So now you're at Kyron Lacey, who's awesome. Aaron Anderson, awesome. And then we have to see who steps up.
Mason Taylor, awesome.
Yeah, the tight ends are well. Mason Taylor's awesome. We'll see about
Xavier
Pimpton and
Thomas is
Green.
coming from state, so he's got the Ole Miss
We'll have
hate in his blood already.
yes, and he's from Louisiana. So, yeah, Xavier Thomas is going to be the first one I expect to step up. I know Coach Kelly said Kamorian Pimpton and Trey Green. I'm interested to see how they use them. Are they going to use them in the slot? Are they going to use them as tight ends? Like, how are they going to be involved? But it feels like they have to be involved at this point. And then you get to Sheldon Sampson.
And look, Shelton Sampson's played more than Kyle Parker this year.
And I don't know what to make of that because he hasn't been
He hadn't caught a ball.
Yeah, he hasn't been a receiving target in those snaps, which is alarming. So it's going to be interesting to see how they piece it together. Lacey and Anderson will play as much as humanly possible, I assume. But outside of that, it's like I don't know how much Pimpton, Green, Sampson, Watkins, and those guys play after that. It doesn't feel like something you want. However, well, we'll get to this later, but their situation at receiver is better than Ole Miss's if Ole Miss doesn't have Trey Harris. So that much I will say, because you still have your top 2 guys.
Oh, 100%. If they don't have Trey Harris, it's a way bigger loss than anything LSU may not have at receiver in this game. In a massive way.
Yeah. So that's anything else on the offensive side of the ball for
LSU?
Yeah.
My player of the game, I said, had to be Caden Durham.
Yes.
If they go and I'll give and Josh Williams, right? Like that combo, if they can go over 100 yards rushing, that tells me that unless one of them is Caden Durham takes the first play again for 85 yards and they rush for 15 the rest of the game, that they've maintained some semblance of a run game. They've moved the sticks, and I know what Nussmeier and the receivers do. So that was sort of my key to the game. But yeah, that's my thought on offense. Like, I'm not thinking about the O-line right now. I know what they are. They just need to rise to the occasion. I know what Nuss is. I know what these receivers are. I know who Mason Taylor is. And I'm getting to know, as the Shaq meme would say, Caden Durham, I apologize, I was unfamiliar with your game. He was a back-to-back state champ at Duncanville and MVP of both those games on one of the best teams in the country. So I actually was familiar with his game, but boy, for a freshman, Matty B, time to rely on him, put him out there more and more. And they did.
Yeah.
Frank started him last week.
Yeah, and Brian Kelly didn't sound concerned with his injury he had a couple weeks ago. So I definitely think balance will be important.
Oh, Brian Kelly just said that this. We can say this. And you're about to talk about balance. I don't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
He said last night on the radio show, if you're going to get beer or whatever, do it on third down, not first down, because he said first down is the most important down of this game for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely understand it because the pass rush ability of both teams, I think especially with Ole Miss going against an LSU offensive line that's been good this year, and especially, pass protection wise, but it will be tested in a big way once again here. So Nussmeier, I think, is going to have to do a lot with his arm. I've said it before, I think he throws the ball 40 plus times in this game, which you can still get balanced there. You can still have 40 passes and 25, 26 runs or something like that. But I think Nussmeier is going to have to do a lot with his arm against an Ole Miss secondary that I just don't think is very good right now. I included this in my keys to the game story. Through 6 games this year, Ole Miss has been called for 18 penalties in coverage. Like, this is by far the weakness of the Rebels defense. And so Garrett Nussmeier, these LSU receivers have to be able to win on the perimeter and I think even vertically at least draw some penalties to open up, to loosen them up and get the run game going a little bit, and then maintain that balance for the rest of the game. But Garrett Nussmeier, I expect him to have a lot on his plate here, and I think the numbers are going to reflect that.
When you say 40 passes, it sounds like a lot. Like, oh shit, like they're about to air it out. Nuss threw
He's averaging
well
40.
over 40. He's only started 6 games ever.
Yeah.
The bowl game in January threw over 40 passes. This year, in order of the games, his passes have been 38, 37, 40, 44, and 39. So 40 that's a night out at the office for him. Pretty normal one.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I think the numbers are going to be pretty, like I said, impressive from him. The big thing, as always, for him coming into this one is taking care of the ball. In a game where we expect both offenses to have the upper hand, turnovers will be costly, as we know. Every stop matters, and we'll see how it goes. I expect them to sustain drives. I don't expect a ton of big plays. I expect it to be what we've seen from them against the good teams on their schedule, and even the bad teams is the 8, 9, 10 play drives that get their way down the field, and then this offense is going to have to execute in the red zone. That's really the biggest thing here, and it's cliche to say, but LSU's offense could have 5 possessions in the red zone. Do you leave that with 17 points, or do you leave it with 24 points? Do you leave it with 27 points? Like, how do you leave those possessions in the red zone? That's clearly one of the bigger emphasis because LSU has been such a red zone and third down team. They're top 10 in the country in third downs. They've improved their red zone offense, but those will be put to the test here against Ole Miss's defense.
We can flip it over. Everyone knows about LSU's offense. Jackson Dart will not throw it 40 times. I wouldn't guess unless they're behind. His numbers in order this year, Matty B, 27 attempts, 27, 34, 31, 27, 27. And you look back a year ago and it's basically all the same. So he's a guy who's keeping it under 30 passes a game. And often they can get up and just run the football.
Yeah, and they are. I think Lane Kiffin, even with having a experienced quarterback like Dart, Lane Kiffin, heck, I covered him when he was at FAU, and now at Ole Miss, 4 years there. He is someone who wants to always look to establish the run, and not even just in a traditional sense to set up the pass or anything. Like, he enjoys running the ball because I think you can play with pace quicker there. You're not worried about incomplete passes. You can set your own tempo. He doesn't have an elite running back this year. I like Parrish and guys like that, but they're not, they don't have Quinshon Judkins anymore. Still, they can run the ball. The thing for me, and I wrote about this a couple times, is the pass protection in 2 games against Kentucky and South Carolina has been very shaky. Jackson Dart's been pressured 38% of the time in both games. And against Kentucky, he was really poor against it. Took 4 sacks, was really unable to handle Kentucky's pressure. Against South Carolina, he made some adjustments. Still got pressured a lot, but got the ball out at least. I think he was 4 of 11 passing with only 1 sack against South Carolina's pressure. But still, that is an area where I think LSU's defense has its biggest advantage because Braden Swinson and Savion Jones and company are all very good at rushing the passer, and this is a defense that should be predicated on creating some havoc for Jackson Dart. So if you can get Ole Miss, kind of what Brian Kelly said, if you can get Ole Miss off schedule, if you can get them into a 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, or even longer, then that's where LSU's defense should have consistent success because Jackson Dart against pressure this year has not been good. So that's kind of my key here is getting pressure on Dart and not forcing this secondary to hold up against the Ole Miss receiving core, which is good even without Harris. But if they do have Harris, then it's paramount.
Zay Alexander on Harris.
Yeah, I don't expect Harris to be 100%. Like, I watched that game last week, and he clearly was injured and then did not come back in the game, and I don't think Lane was lying on Monday when he said he's not close to being 100% on Monday. I think he could play, and I think most people are assuming that he does play because this is a homecoming game of sorts for him. But, man, it's hard to move around on an ankle like that. Like, it's hard. So, yeah, I would put my most experienced guy. I put Zay on him and see how Trey Harris looks early and then react from there.
You talk about slowing down. Like, what is the key here? You're obviously slowing down the Ole Miss offense. That sounds,
Yeah.
it's broad, but then specifically, what does that mean for Blake Baker? What has to happen in this game? Is it
Yeah.
always putting them behind the numbers? Like, first down, you're getting a stop, and now they're working from behind?
This has to be, and Brian Kelly talked about this in his press conferences, you're scared to play off coverage because they are so good at the quick game and they're so good. Like I said, he likes running the ball, but he also likes the quick stuff, the RPOs, the bubble screens and whatnot, because you can kind of get to the next play really, really quickly. And that's the challenge for LSU is when Ole Miss does go tempo, how are you able to refute that in a sense? Like, you have to be able to get them on an incomplete pass. You have to get them on a TFL to where they don't want to go tempo. They have to get the next play right if you get a TFL, if you get an incomplete pass. So that's where I'm at, is that you have to be somewhat aggressive at the line of scrimmage on the perimeter as well, not just on at linebacker or on the defensive line. So that's by far my most interesting point here is how do you stop their short stuff? How do you stop them from getting in a rhythm? And I think South Carolina and Kentucky both did a really pretty good job of it. South Carolina, I know, got blown out, but it wasn't the defense that really cost them in that one. So if you put them at the 20-yard line and make them drive 80 yards consistently, I think LSU has a shot at keeping this thing under, less than what most people expect going into the game. But if I'll go back to this real quick, if Ole Miss doesn't have Trey Harris, I think it should swing the spread. I think it should swing a lot of people's perception of this game because Trey Harris is like the heart of it. He's the best player on this team. I'll say that right now. 62 targets this year, 50 receptions. I mean, he's a monster. He leads the country with 880 receiving yards. And he is like everything that they want in this offense because he can make those short stuff. He can make those short throws go for 60 yards and a touchdown. And he's so reliable. And if he is not 100% or if he doesn't play, I think that makes life a lot easier to guard this team.
They run the football a good bit with both Dart and their run game. So I'm with, it sounds so simple. It is simple to say, but it's fundamental to the game. Brian Kelly was like, look, first down and tackling in space. There you go.
They didn't do it
We
last
get them
year.
behind the change. We tackle in space. That's it. Like, we haven't seen the busted plays that we saw a year ago, not at that clip. So if we can move that beyond that for a second, it's tackling in space and getting them behind the chains on first down, incomplete pass, stop them for a 1-yard run or 2-yard run, whatever it might be, stop them in the backfield. The havoc rate I think Blake Baker talks about is one that in this game has to show up.
Yeah, and it's similar to what I said about, going to the USC game where we were both kind of talked about getting to Miller Moss and whatnot. But this is different because Ole Miss's offense is just fundamentally different than what USC did in terms of all those short stuff make you tackle in space. USC had a bunch of like big receivers that that could go up and catch the ball over guys, and Ole Miss has a couple of those too. But Juice Wells is really quick. Jordan Watkins is quick. We already know about Trey Harris. They use Caden Prieskorn at tight end really well. You're gonna have to tackle them short of the sticks in key spots. Can LSU do that? I don't know, but I go into this game not fully worried about the LSU defense, or at least not panicked about it. Like I don't think this Ole Miss offense,
Not
and
like a year ago.
this is not the same matchup as last year. And I've said it this on both ends. Both offenses are not as good as they were a year ago, and both defenses I think are better than they were a year ago. Now last year they scored 104 points combined, but I don't
I,
think we're getting in the 90s in this
I
game.
don't think either coach, even for as high powered as Lane is, and I'll want to drop he doesn't want to get in a shootout in this one either. I
Yeah.
don't think so.
I don't think so because I don't think his offensive line's as good as last year. If Trey Harris is injured, he definitely doesn't want to do that. And Jackson Dart, and he's playing this game with the worst quarterback. He's playing this game with, in my opinion, Garrett Nussmeier is the better quarterback. He's handled pressure better. He's been in more challenging games to this point. I think Garrett Nussmeier is the better quarterback in this matchup, and I think that's what Lane Kiffin knows in the back of his head, and that's why they're going to try to establish a run, get some easy stuff, not let LSU pass rush hit. It's going to be a chess game, that's for sure.
Jackson Dart can run the football, though, and
Yes.
Nuss hasn't yet to this point, so that's an element we'll have to
Yes.
keep an eye on
Yeah.
beyond them throwing it.
Yeah.
Let's get a game time ad read in here. You down for it? Do you have it
Do it.
pulled up? I think that the tickets for this one, you might want to wait
It's
until the
going to be
day
all
of
resellers at this point because it's sold
to
out.
see how much it's coming down. But as y'all know, every Friday for the preview and predictions pod, we rock with Game Time. Game Time, download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code ON3, ON3, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create account, redeem code. It's just ON3. When you get to the promo code section, that'll take $20 right off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time, y'all know the deal by now. They've got the all-in pricing. They've got your seat views. They've got a lowest price guarantee. You can hop onto every ticketing site out there. Game Time will still have the lowest prices, and they've got you covered all the way up with any sort of kind of run-in you might have that you can't make the game, medical emergency, work, whatever. They've got you covered. With any event cancellation, job loss protection, all of that. They've got the super deals, so check those out. Matty B's highlighting one of them right now, but I bet those start to drop as time goes on. But you can be in the lower bowl for about $200 for look. And I'm telling you, for this game, that's a cheap ticket. There are not going to be many seats available in the house at nighttime. It's not going to be hot. The weather's been awesome in Baton
Oh,
Rouge this week,
incredible.
so we are good to go in terms of a beautiful day, a beautiful night, and use Game Time to jump on some tickets. Like I said, best price guarantee every time, and check out the flash deals, but also you'll see them pop up with like the amazing deals, all of that. You can get 2, 4, 6, 8 seats, one, doesn't matter, however many you want. Let you filter out all of that. But check it out. All in pricing too. You won't get to check out, and then there's like 800 things tagged on. So thank you to Game Time. Use them. Download the app. Game Time. One word. Create an account. Use the code ON3. $20 off that first purchase. Terms apply. Maddie B, you want to pick some MVPs on O&D?
Yep.
I already did my offense. I said Caden Durham.
Fair.
A big game from Caden. Caden Durham does a lot for me because I already know what Nuss is going to do and these receivers.
LSU is could potentially be down 3 receivers in this game.
One of them hasn't played all year, so call it 2.
Sure, call it 2. So give me Kyron Lacy.
Ooh.
I have not picked Kyron Lacy in a
You
breakout
have
game this
not. I thought
year.
you were going to go Aaron Anderson or Savion Thomas.
That's all fair. Those
All
two,
fair.
Mason Taylor could end up with 12 catches for all we know at this point.
Those four are the most important names in the
Yes.
passing game this weekend, beyond Garrett.
But this is a game where I don't think Ole Miss has anybody to match up with Kyron Lacy. And Kyron
No.
Lacy, to this point in the year, has had a good year. I think he's had a good year, not a great year. This is the game where Kyron Lacy breaks out. This should
LSU
be
LSU
good.
doesn't have anyone that can match up with 100% Trey Harris either, which is why you bring up the point. If he's limited, that really helps kind
Yeah.
of even out the matchup.
Yes. If Trey Harris does not play, Kyron Lacy is the best receiver on this team or in this game. Kyron Lacy is going to go over 100 yards, 6-7 receptions, touchdown. We get him dancing in the end zone. I think Kyron Lacy has a lot on his shoulders, and he knows it, and he's going to step up. I just don't think Ole Miss secondary is good enough. He's probably going to draw a pass interference or two as well. I think Nussmeier looks for him early and often. Him and Mason Taylor are going to have some big games.
Predicting the Mason Taylor shiesty mask off end zone celebration from Matty B there. Kicks in the door and reveals himself.
There you go.
Defense, oh boy, I will go with the reality that this has to be a sound fundamental game. It's so easy for me to say a corner needs to lock up a guy, or a Swinson needs, or a Savion Jones needs to just keep doing what they're doing. I'm going Greg Penn. I'm going the guy who sits there in the middle. He sets the defense up. He quietly leads them with 17 tackles or whatever it was when Harold Perkins goes out. We're now in phase 2 of no Harold Perkins. And Whit Weeks, hell of a player. Love him. He could make some huge plays in this game. The veteran presence of a Greg Penn in a game that's going to move fast, is high stakes. I think he remains even keeled, gets guys set up. If he can play the best Greg Penn game he can play, you're negating a lot of those, oh, we missed a tackle and now someone's in the open field. So give me Greg Penn.
Yeah. I do not know who I want to pick for this.
Pick Major.
No. Major, like the secondary has a lot. I think we all understand this. With or without Trey Harris, is going to be pressured. I still like, even if Trey Harris doesn't play, they have a solid receiving core. I do think Juice Wells is a good player. I do think Jordan Watkins is a good player. Player of the game, or player, breakout player type guy. Give me Zy. Just give me Zy Alexander. I'm going to go into this assuming Trey Harris plays. I'm assuming he's going to play at like 75% or so. But Trey Harris at 75% is still a very, very good receiver and someone that LSU is going to have to account for. If Zy can just get a couple PBUs here, make him a little uncomfortable, make him cut in a way he doesn't want to off of that ankle, I think it'll be big. Give me Zy to have at least a good game and be a cog in a defense that's going to help slow down Trey Harris if he is hobbled and if he plays. If Trey Harris is 100%, they've been lying to us the whole time, then I rescind everything I said.
Lane Kiffin lying again. As you did point out, though, anyone who watched South Carolina
looked
game, he
bad.
got hurt. He was hurt.
Yeah. So I don't think he's going to be 100% if he plays. What that means, I don't know. But I hope Zy can at least step up to the challenge enough to limit Trey Harris' production. So we'll see.
Well, shout out to Zy Alexander. That'd be huge. Southeastern transfer from a couple years ago. But shout out Lauraville, Iberia Parish. Stand up if Zy Alexander makes a big play. I know you guys are 0-4 on Friday nights right now, but your boy Zy's got you on Saturday. So all of Iberia Parish and certainly Lauraville will be more than thrilled if a guy like Zy steps up big in this game. Score? Are we score predicting up, Matty B?
Do it. Let's wrap it up.
You go first.
I have not made a score prediction on this game yet. I am going to go 30-28 LSU. I think if this game was on a neutral site, if this game was both teams off of a bye week, I would lean Ole Miss, but it's not. And the game played within those margins on the field takes into account potentially an injured Trey Harris. A South Carolina team that is coming off of 6 straight games, will be playing their 7th straight game, is without their starting offensive tackle, is still banged up on the offensive line. Um, an offensive line that has been susceptible to good pass rushes this year. I think LSU's pass rush is going to be a big point in this game. And ultimately, I don't trust Jackson Dart as much as I do Garrett Nussmeier with his back against the wall. I think Garrett Nussmeier is going to have his breakout game and really show the country why he is a top 5 quarterback in the country. And with that being said, Kyron Lacy is right there along with him. So I think LSU scores enough and Jackson Dart and company make enough mistakes here to where LSU holds them below 35, which is enough. If Ole Miss scores 31 or less, I feel great about LSU winning this game. And I think LSU's defense does enough to get some key stops and key turnovers here. So I have LSU at 30 because that does include potentially a few field goals. I don't think they're perfect, but I think they're going to be able to move the ball. Like, I think LSU gets to the red zone a lot. How those possessions go, no.
They've been very good at scoring TDs in the red zone recently.
So, yes. So that's where it's going to be interesting to see, can they leave with X amount of touchdowns or X amount of field goals? I think they're going to get there, and I think they're going to be able to move the ball. It's just about finishing drives, but they'll do it enough to where I think they win this game.
I predicted LSU to lose this game before the year. I think Ole Miss has a better roster. I don't think that that's an indictment on LSU's program. I think it's direct correlation between how the two teams approached this offseason. Lane Kiffin went all in. They had the best portal class. This is a group that was built for, hey, we need to go to the playoffs and try to win a national championship this year. And there's going to be buzz around him in Florida if Napier doesn't do well and all that. LSU doesn't have any of that. LSU's building for the long term. No, this roster is probably not starter versus starter across the board better than Ole Miss. Okay.
Correct.
When the line came out at 2.5, I thought they were begging people to bet on Ole Miss, saying, Ole Miss, they're like put together a stacked team in the offseason. Like they're a top 10 team. They're a top 5 team before losing to Kentucky. Like only beating LSU by a field goal, that's free money. It's at 3.5 right now. You could buy it down to 3, I guess, if you felt like it. But point being, I think that more people are on LSU in this one than I realized would be. And I don't think LSU has the better team in this matchup. That's why I predicted them to lose before the season. Vegas thinks Ole Miss will score about 34 and that LSU will score about 30, something in that range.
Mm-hmm.
The 100 years of Tiger Stadium, the sold-out crowd, nighttime, playing in Death Valley, these guys playing this game a year ago, and this was the game that kept them out of a New Year's Six game last year. Like, you do not score 50 points and put up 700 yards and lose, and they did last year. And Blake Baker wasn't the DC, but he met that same fate with Missouri. Like, they went in on Ole Miss, but Ole Miss just kept scoring. I think that you throw in what you said. Ole Miss has played every week. Yes, LSU has injuries. They're also on a 2-week rest.
Yeah.
LSU's coming off Kentucky and South Carolina games. Yes, they won comfortably at South Carolina. Still, you got to play the game. Now you're traveling right back again to Baton Rouge for a night game. I came into this pod, I said 31-30. I think I'm going a 1-point game, 31-30 Ole Miss. I'm flipping it. 31-30 LSU.
There you go.
It's not tangible. It doesn't make sense. But if the crowd and the atmosphere and the magic of Tiger Stadium gets into it, if they false start a couple of times, that kills a drive. If they, and I'm not talking like, oh, well, they've got Jackson Dart, he's a senior, can handle it. I'm talking about your right guard or tackle that may not hear what's going on and misses the cadence and jumps. That's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Get them penalized. As you said, they get penalized a good bit in the defensive backfield. if this crowd just gets into it, LSU busts some plays. I wasn't going to do it, Matty B. I'll pick LSU to win 31-30. But
Ole
I'm
Miss,
staying on the under. I'm more confident in the under
yes,
than I am anything
correct.
else. The under is 66.
62?
I think it was higher than that at one point. It continues to come
Is it
down.
at
It's
62
not.
now?
Um,
Or do you have it? I don't know if you have it or
I
not.
have it in front of me. 62.
Yeah,
It's 30 and 31. My math as an
61.
LSU grad tells me that's 61. I'm still under. I don't
I'm
think it's a shootout.
I'm under as well, mostly because I think both teams are gonna have to sustain drives, especially again if Trey Harris doesn't play. Ole Miss's drives will be, have to include more of the run game and be fairly meticulous. But to go back to what you said real quick, Ole Miss ranks 129th in penalties per game at 9.2. That is especially important when going into a conference game where Ole Miss is fatigued at any point, on the road, frustrated at all, tired. That this is an Ole Miss team that's very willing to just be grabby and start holding and get penalties. So that is another thing I think that works in LSU's favor here, is that they should have less penalties than Ole Miss in this game. So there it is. There's our predictions.
We picked LSU to win every game so far, and they've only lost once. So I guess we're okay. Like we're 4-1.
Yes. I think I picked USC to cover the spread week 1, so I was
I'll
right
tell
on
you
that
that.
side.
I'll tell you this before we get out of here, Matty B, and before everyone, because everyone needs to go enjoy their weekend. I know everyone's driving into town, all that, but let me just preface it with this, and everyone's saying it, so I'm just going to repeat what you hear on the radio from Hannah Griff, or Moscona or T-Bob or Jacob, former players, to the best guys out there who know about the game and LSU, to guys like us who kind of cover everything from recruiting to the team. Ole Miss is a top 10 team, yes. Arkansas just beat Tennessee. This is LSU's remaining schedule. Arkansas just beat Tennessee. A&M just throttled Missouri. Bama just lost to Vandy, but Bama's Bama. Florida is showing a pulse when we thought that they weren't. Vandy just knocked off Bama, and OU is still a top 20 team. They could lose every game left on the schedule. They could also win every game left on the schedule. So I don't view this one through that much different of a lens than I am every other week. It's what's the matchup? And for me, this one being at home in Tiger Stadium at night is a major difference maker.
Yeah. Coming into the season, I had LSU 2 losses to A&M and Florida, which obviously the Florida one looks terrible looking back on it, but
No, it ain't. No, maybe not.
who knows at this point? But again, the point being is that in the SEC, we see how hard it is to
Well,
win
you
on
have
the
to
road.
go to Florida. It's hard to win on the road.
Yes, Arkansas beats Tennessee at home. It's just like playing on the road in the SEC cannot be overvalued. Like it cannot be overstated how difficult that is, no matter where the game is, if it's against Vanderbilt or if it's against LSU. So that is playing a significant role in my prediction as well, which I'm perfectly fine saying because it's in Tiger Stadium. Like we saw 2 years ago what happened when LSU was a dog to Alabama. Like that's just weird stuff happens and LSU finds a way at times. So if this is an LSU team that we expect it to be in terms of it being embodying Louisiana, and Brian Kelly has constructed a roster that has pride in the state and what it's doing, then yeah, playing in Tiger Stadium in front of 102,000 people matters. Oh, you muted yourself.
Just to sum it up, not the same teams, but look, similar for Ole Miss, at least on offense. Ole Miss went to Tulane last year and was losing at halftime. They went to Auburn last year and won by 7. Going to South Carolina and winning that game like they did was impressive.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Now
That
do it
was
again.
this year. Now do it again. And that's tough to do. It is tough to string together. Winning on the road is tough. Winning on the road in the SEC is tougher. Winning in Tiger Stadium is arguably the toughest. And on a night when you're celebrating 100 years of Tiger Stadium with like all the former players back and everyone rowdy, and LSU without that true rival, if you polled them, the fan base, I think the majority would win out that they hate Ole Miss the most, and that would be their rival. Ole Miss considers State their rival, obviously, but I don't know.
Yeah, but when State sucks, then it's LSU.
State sucked last year, and Ole Miss went up there, didn't even score 20 points on
That's
them in
that's
Starkville.
so disgusting.
It was like 17-7 or
I remember
something.
that. I
Egg
remember.
Bowl for sure.
Well,
Give me LSU 31-30. All right, I'm out. I'll be
let's do it.
wrong, and you can throw egg on my face and whatever, but
Let's do
that's
it.
my pick.
Let's do it. All right. Thank y'all for joining us. Leave us a like, comment, share, subscribe. Follow us on the Bengal Tiger On3. Subscribe over there.
Subscribe. 50% off an annual. That's less than $5 a month. Just go to thebengaltiger.com or go to On3, and then you can get there from the LSU page, the Bengal Tiger. We've added Julie Bowden. We've added Jarrett Roser. We've now added Tyler Harden. We've got Billy. We just dropped a recruiting pod this week. Me and Maddie B, and we are dropping tons of recruit. It's going to be a massive recruiting weekend. So
Yeah.
buckle in.
Buckle in. Buckle in. Thank you all for joining us. Again, leave a like, comment, share, subscribe. Send it to a friend. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Let us know what you think on the message boards. Bengal Tiger On3. Subscribe
Predictions
over there.
below. Predictions below on YouTube. Drop them.
Predictions below. Drop them. If you get it exactly right, I've said it before. If anybody gets it exactly right, we'll give you a shout out on the next pod. So
I'll give you a free month membership.
Okay. There you go. Shea's words, not mine.
Out
But yeah,
of my pocket.
We'll be back after the game to recap all of what we expect to be a fantastic game. So until then, we will talk to y'all later.
Later.